Mother's Day is almost here, and you can get her the most beautiful time-tested gift around. A watch she can wear every day from Movement. Whether mom's into classic dress watches, rare and refined ceramics, or tried and true bestsellers, Movement has something she'll love. And right now you can save big on the best Mother's Day gift ever with up to 50% off site-wide during Movement's Mother's Day sale at mvmt.com. Again, that's up to 50% off at mvmt.com.
We made this.
Welcome back, Trekkies and Trekkers, to We Are Starfleet. With Season 3 of Discovery fast approaching in a mere 5 weeks, I thought it might be fun to unpack one of the more interesting plot devices that literally launched the series, the Klingons. Whether they're around in Season 3 remains to be seen, and in what capacity. Are they going to return to their adversarial roots with what remains of the Federation, or are they going to be part of that loose alliance that we see in the trailer? Season 3 premieres on October 15, and in the meantime, if you want to catch up on the events of Star Trek Discovery, make sure you check out episodes 1 through 4, where I'm joined by fellow Trek colleagues to break down Seasons 1 and 2. Also in the library, I sit down with the host of The Threshold, a Star Trek podcast, to cover all of the exciting footage in Season 3, and you can find that in Episode 5. Episode 6, my friend Jason and I discuss his first impressions of Discovery, and finally, our sister podcast, Make It So, is actually doing a series of episode breakdowns on Star Trek Discovery. Definitely make sure you connect with us on Twitter at StarfleetPod to stay tuned. So I can't help but admit that while watching Discovery, I've been thinking a lot about the Klingons. Not only do they play a massive role, of course, in Season 1 and in Season 2, but all the changes that they went through throughout the series. Not just Discovery, but the Trek franchise as a whole. And the recent episode of Lower Decks, where Ensign Boimler is assigned to escort General Corinne to a Federation embassy, Ensign Mariner, ever the troublemaker, gets herself assigned to the same mission because somehow, spoiler alert, she's best buds with the Klingon general. And if by the year 2380, which is when Lower Decks takes place, the Federation and the Klingon Empire are so close that a Starfleet ensign can drink a Klingon general under the table. You know, with an absolutely brutal war fought between these two spacefaring races in the very start of Star Trek Discovery, like, how could all this come to be, right? So in this episode, I will posit that it's all thanks to T'Kuvma for bringing these two galactic superpowers together in harmony. By initiating the Federation-Klingon War in 2256, he sets off a chain of events that ultimately bridge the cultural gap within almost a single generation. The Khitomer Accords that establish peace is signed in 2296, only 40 years following the war. And only 75 years later, there's a powerful alliance between these two that fights back an entire invasion force from the Gamma Quadrant. And then some. Now, I might be glossing over some details on that last part just so we don't get too far off topic, but please drop me a comment on Instagram or Twitter if you're interested in hearing more about the Federation-Klingon Alliance and the Dominion War, as it could be a topic well suited to The Sanctuary, which is a Star Trek and economics and politics podcast. So, let's get into this.
Black alert. Black alert.
The penultimate two-part opening to Star Trek Discovery's first season was actually a prologue to the entire story. With reception from both critics and fans being largely positive, I want to point out that it was also a huge pivot from what Trek fans are used to. In the story of Episode 1, The Vulcan Hello, it introduces you to a ship and its captain who, spoiler alert, are at the end of their story. It's not until the end of Episode 2, The Battle of the Binary Stars, that we really learn where our journey of discovery is taking us. The Battle of the Binary Stars also referred to as the Battle of the Binaries, was the opening battle in the Federation-Klingon War between the United Federation of Planets and the Klingon Empire. For those keeping track at home, the battle took place in 2256 on stardate 1207.3. Again, for those keeping track at home, that date is Sunday, May 11, 2256. This battle kicks off the events of Discovery, and indeed, if you really want to think about all manner of butterfly effects, explains so much of why Klingons throughout the different eras seem to be almost friendly, if not standoffish, to humans and the Federation in general. And to understand what that really means and the events of this battle in history, we must first understand the Klingons. The Klingons hail from a planet called Kronos in the Beta Quadrant. They are a proud warrior race that demands tradition and honor, and they've achieved a superpower status in the galaxy. The Klingons do not worship gods, but they do revere Kahless the Unforgettable. Kahless founded the Klingon Empire sometime around Earth's 9th century by bringing together the warring tribes across Kronos after defeating his most fearsome enemies, Molor and the Fek-Iri. In doing so, he became a powerful Klingon leader who instituted a strong and devout code of honor, which brought law and order to a very chaotic world. Kahless the Unforgettable could be compared to Earth's own Alexander the Great, who journeyed great lengths and united Persia through conquest. In doing so, by bringing together so many different peoples and founding so many cities, most notably Alexandria and Egypt, he created entire new cultures and civilizations as a result. Alexander is still revered throughout the world as a great military leader and classical hero. Kahless could also be compared to some of the great classical and Renaissance-era philosophers of Earth's history, as he didn't just set out to conquer, he envisioned a better way of life for all Klingon. There is a story passed down through the ages on Kronos. Long ago, a storm was headed for the city of Quinlat. Everyone took protection within the city walls except one man who remained outside. Kahless went to him and asked what he was doing. "I am not afraid," the man said. "I will not hide my face behind stone and mortar. I will stand before the wind and make it respect me." Kahless honored his choice and went back inside. The next day, the storm came, and the man was killed. Kahless replied, "The wind does not respect a fool." So if Kahless the Unforgettable is the revered classical hero of Kronos, we have a better understanding of his own legacy and how he changed the course of Klingon history for good, and why the legend of Kahless the Unforgettable is so powerful for all Klingons. A leader of unparalleled courage and honor in the face of grave obstacles. It is with this understanding that we can now really look at the hows and whys and unravel the mystery of the Battle of the Binary Stars. It all starts with the story of the Promise and how Klingons revere their fallen warriors. It is considered the highest of honors to die in battle, as the spirit of the warrior will then ascend to Sto-vo-kor, which we can consider to be akin to Valhalla in Earth's Viking history. The story of the Promise was Kahless' ultimate prophecy. When Kahless united the people, he gave them the laws of honor. He saw that his work was done. So one night, he gathered his belongings and went to the edge of the city to say goodbye. The people wept as they did not want him to go. And Kahless said, "You are Klingons. You need no one but yourselves. I will go now to Sto-vo-kor. But I promise one day I will return." Then Kahless pointed to a star in the sky and said, "Look for me there, on that point of light." I emphasize that final phrase, that point of light, because it's extremely important to the beginnings of the Battle of the Binary Stars. The Klingon religious leader T'Kuvma, Starfleet, and the USS Shenzhou, and Commander Michael Burnham. The original two-part pilot that began the story of Star Trek Discovery focused heavily on how the war started, and it did a great job in setting the stage for a series that would feature the Federation-Klingon War. The relationship between the Federation and the Klingons up to this point had always been tense. Since first contact with Klingons on Earth, wherein a crash-landed Klingon had been shot by a human farmer while trying to evade enemy pursuers, to the Klingon augment virus that caused mutations in Klingons by using altered human DNA, which resulted in extreme agonizing death until Dr. Phlox and Captain Archer of the NX Enterprise helped to develop a cure. And of course, all the various skirmishes and overt hostility. The Battle of Donatu 5 was a standout skirmish in the year 2245, resulting in a stalemate between the Federation and the Klingon Empire at that time. Additionally, the Vulcans had little to no relationship with the Klingons, and their strategy for dealing with them when encountered was simple: shoot on sight. So the two powers remained in a state of Cold War until 2256, when the USS Shenzhou, commanded by Captain Philippa Georgiou, was ordered to the edge of Federation space to repair a communications relay in the area of a binary star system. Now, this relay was actually disabled purposefully by the Klingon leader T'Kuvma, who we will talk about shortly. The star system itself is surrounded by a large debris field, and the stellar phenomena caused issues with the Shenzhou sensors. Within the debris field, the Klingons had hidden an object, and it appeared to be purposefully scattering the Shenzhou sensors. The large amounts of stellar radiation also limited communications within the field. So, in order to solve this mystery, Commander Michael Burnham performs a spacewalk to the object in order to determine its actual state and origin. Burnham explores the object and realizes it is purposefully designed. But before she can get any further, she is surprised by a Klingon warrior with a bat'leth. She attempts to make contact, but the warrior responds by swinging his bat'leth at her. A brief altercation ensues, with Burnham turning the bat'leth on the warrior and impaling him by a sheer stroke of luck. She is knocked unconscious and sent spinning from the object, with the USS Shenzhou recovering her from the radiation field. Captain Philippa Georgiou sends a distress signal to Starfleet, warning them of hostile Klingons in Federation space.
Contact Starfleet Command. Tell them we have engaged the Klingons.
We now know that this is the intent of T'Kuvma. You see, T'Kuvma fancies himself Kahless reborn, and believes he can unite the many great houses of Klingon under one banner, as Kahless did many centuries before. The object is the beacon of Kahless, which was prophesied by the stories of Kahless. By lighting the beacon, this point of light, a light so powerful it could be seen across the galaxy, the different houses of Kronos would have to answer the call and unite under the banner of T'Kuvma. What's interesting about him as a person is that he had been an outcast all his life. Not the strongest Klingon, not the bravest. His house was largely ignored. And as a devout traditionalist and a Klingon nationalist, he was able to inspire other Klingons who felt like him and rally them to his cause. So, as the Klingon fleet arrives to investigate this beacon that was lit, as it heralds the return of Kahless, T'Kuvma makes his case for uniting against a common enemy, the Federation. He claims that the Federation's goal is to assimilate the galaxy and wipe away the many unique cultures. And his call to action is remain Klingon. And he claims that the phrase, "we come in peace," is actually a human battle cry.
We come in peace. We come in peace. We come in peace.
By provoking the Shenzhou into sending a distress call, he proves to the Klingon fleet that war is the only answer, as a group of Starfleet ships drop out of warp to come face-to-face with the Klingons. Finally, of course, T'Kuvma declares that he is T'Kuvma, the Unforgettable, Kahless reborn. Just imagine being a Klingon leader aboard your ship, and you listening to this religious phenomenon.
If you own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles and have an auto warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all, listen up. CarShield has a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that covers more parts than ever. Visit carshield.com/audio to find out how you could pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Get your free quote today at carshield.com/audio. That's carshield.com/audio.
Fanatic make wild claims of being the reincarnation of Kahless. Then watching a foe you've been in a cold war with for decades suddenly show up in force. There would certainly seem to be only one path available to you. After all, you're Klingon. Glory is in battle. And to die in battle is the ultimate glory. To live on in Stavakor. It is the highest of honors, and T'Kuvma knows this. The battle begins after T'Kuvma orders the Shenzhou destroyed. Starfleet jumps into action, and the battle proceeds with major losses. Among them are thousands of casualties and several starships, including Admiral Anderson and the USS Europa, which was rammed by a massive cloaked Klingon cleave ship while attempting to broker a ceasefire. In its final moments, Admiral Anderson orders a warp core detonation, which destroys the Klingon ship. By this point, the USS Shenzhou is disabled and left drifting. USS Clark, Edison, Shran, T'Plana-Hath, and the Jaeger are all considered lost. Klingon reinforcements arrive and scatter the remaining Starfleet ships. Considering the battle victorious, T'Kuvma orders the remaining Klingons back and demands they fight as a once more unified empire against the Federation. T'Kuvma decides to remain behind on his ship, planning to retrieve the Klingon dead for proper burial rites. In a brilliant act of defiance and a last stance, the Shenzhou subtly beams an armed photon torpedo onto a dead Klingon that's being retrieved. And this results in a massive explosion that disables T'Kuvma's ship. Now, in an effort to capture T'Kuvma, Captain Philippa Georgiou and Commander Michael Burnham beam aboard the now disabled Klingon vessel, hoping to use the chaos to capture the Klingon leader and present him to the Klingon Empire in an effort to humiliate and shame the self-proclaimed T'Kuvma the Unforgettable. For a Klingon, there is no honor in defeat, no honor in capture. And if they can succeed in this, then they could potentially prevent the war. Unfortunately, the away mission results in the death of Captain Georgiou and T'Kuvma, who ultimately becomes a martyr to the Klingon cause. Burnham is rescued in an emergency beam-out, and the Shenzhou crew is ordered to abandon ship. And so this sets off the Federation-Klingon War. And with T'Kuvma dead, there is a power vacuum. While the Klingons are united in their fight against the Federation, hungry for power and the glory of battle with an enemy, they are not coordinated. And it is not until Kol, the leader of House Kor, takes command of the fleet that the war truly ramps up. The House of Kor would later also be responsible for a potential brush war with Captain Kirk and the USS Enterprise, and this results in the Treaty of Regania in 2266. Following the battle, Commander Michael Burnham is court-martialed for her role. During the course of the run-up to fully fledged hostilities, Burnham actually advocates for firing on T'Kuvma's ship first. Her logic, inspired by the Vulcan mandate to simply fire first on the Klingons, is sound. Klingons respond to violence in a somewhat agreeable way. As a warrior race, they absolutely respect the acts of war that Starfleet otherwise frowns upon. Commander Burnham, affected by her past traumas and childhood being attacked by Klingons at a Federation outpost, attempts the Vulcan nerve pinch on Captain Georgiou and commandeers the Shenzhou in an act of mutiny. She orders the Klingon ship fired upon, which is not immediately obeyed, giving Georgiou enough time to come and return to the bridge to order Burnham to the brig. It is for this that Burnham is court-martialed for mutiny. It is, however, debatable that Burnham's plan would have even worked if the Shenzhou had indeed fired upon the Klingons first, prior to the Klingon fleet arriving. T'Kuvma's line of reasoning was that the Federation was weak-willed and not worthy. They must be eradicated before given an opportunity to go any further. With glory at hand and the galaxy ripe for conquest, T'Kuvma's belief he was Kahless the Unforgettable reborn, we can assume that any act of aggression on the Shenzhou's part would have simply been more than welcomed as proof positive for T'Kuvma's end goal. Therefore, it is only logical to believe that Burnham's attempt to prevent a war before it could begin would have ultimately been for nothing. Indeed, she had already killed a Klingon warrior, essentially drawing first blood. The battle lines that were drawn here, and it was only a matter of time before the Cold War between the Federation and the Klingon Empire got hot. Commander Michael Burnham is stripped of rank due to her role in the battle and her mutiny, and sentenced to prison. She is ultimately recruited by Captain Gabriel Lorca to the USS Discovery after taking note of her tactic to fire first on the Klingons, and assigned a role as a specialist aboard the Discovery. Ultimately, her rank is restored following the war and the mutiny stricken from record. And while Starfleet is ultimately victorious, they do suffer major losses, with multiple attacks throughout Federation space, losing territory, and even incursions into Sol system. They also suffer from the brain drain. Some of Starfleet's finest are lost as a result of the war. The Battle of the Binary Star sees the loss of Admiral Anderson and Captain Georgiou, both highly decorated Starfleet officers, along with the captains of several other vessels and their crews. As Lieutenant Connor had recorded on the Shenzhou at the outbreak, were explorers, not soldiers. That line is telling. For one, it does remind us that Starfleet's mandate is to explore strange new worlds, not launch into battles and pit themselves against enemies. But the duration of the Federation-Klingon War sees Starfleet suffer these losses, and with new recruits and cadets coming into the field, there is now an entire graduating class born into the war, with veterans of the Cold War and the Battle of the Binary Stars commanding their own vessels well into the late 2200s. The animosity and memory of the war lasts just as long, as these explorers are ripped from that mandate and turned into soldiers. By the time the Klingon moon Praxis was destroyed in 2293, as observed by Captain Sulu aboard the USS Excelsior, the Klingon Empire was in a heightened state of alert with the Federation. While Captain Kirk and the Enterprise had dealings with the Klingons throughout their own 5-year mission, as well as other deep space missions, there were diplomatic relations between the two powers, and the neutral zone between their sovereign space. Tensions had always persisted, but Praxis having been destroyed by the overmining of resources caused a major climate shift on Kronos, resulting in Kronos being unable to sustain life in 50 years without immediate assistance and aid. Chancellor Gorkin, leader of the Klingon High Council at that time, initiated the beginning of what would become the Khitomer Peace Accords with the Federation, which would ultimately lead to lasting peace between the two major powers. To bring a lasting peace to the galaxy would give the Klingons the resources they would need to deal with the climate shift on Kronos, as many of the resources they had available were given to meet their military needs. While the peace accords were eventually brokered, they were hampered along the way by the assassination of Chancellor Gorkin by Klingon nationalists, human co-conspirators, and Romulan agents seeking to help keep the balance of power unsteady. Thanks to the efforts of Captains Kirk, Spock, and Sulu, they were able to uncover the conspiracy and prevented a second and potentially more desperate war between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. In 2344, the Battle of Narenda III would have the USS Enterprise C sacrifice herself defending a Klingon outpost from a surprise attack by the Romulans. The Klingon Empire saw the valor and the courageous act of sacrifice as the highest honor, resulting in a strong relationship between the two powers. By the 2360s, the Klingon Worf rises to command staff aboard the Federation flagship USS Enterprise D, signifying not just a strong relationship, but even an alliance. Commander Riker even serves a short duration aboard a Klingon vessel as part of an officer exchange program. As an aside, this historian cannot help but note how the name Enterprise continues to come up in these pivotal moments throughout Federation history. So, you have to wonder about how T'Kuvma would feel setting all of this in motion. His mandate to remain Klingon. The Klingon Empire did indeed unite together under High Chancellor L'Rell, one of his own followers, at the close of the Federation-Klingon War, eventually forming an uneasy truce with the Federation, brokering a lasting peace and ultimately becoming allies by the 2370s in a war against the Dominion. I can only say there is great honor in friendship. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of We Are Starfleet, diving into the Battle of Binary Stars and the impact this battle had on the Federation. History is full of moments that don't exist in bottles, and the ripple effect through time must be considered. Considering that Season 3 Discovery is taking us into the future, I have a good feeling we're going to see the end results of actions taken throughout the 22nd and 23rd centuries. I'd like to thank and cite Memory Alpha for all the great background information and sources, and the episodes TNG, The Rightful Heir, Voyager, Barge of the Dead, DS9, The Way of the Warrior. That's going to be it for me. I'm your host, Mike Slammer. If you want to talk about this more, feel free to tweet at me at StarfleetPod on Twitter and Instagram. Drop me an email at wearestarfleetwmtr@gmail.com, and make sure you check out all our shows on the We Made This Pod network. Finally, I recently launched a new short-form podcast talking all things the Batman with my friend Jason. That's called Gotham University, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. You can find us as Gotham U Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Join us to explore all things Batman within the DCEU, the comics, animated series, and of course, the video games. Thanks, everybody.
We Are Starfleet is a podcast dedicated to Star Trek Discovery and how it relates to the story, ethos, and canon of Star Trek. Join your host, Mike Slammer, as he sits down with guests from all over the world to talk disco. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at StarfleetPod. Follow for more Star Trek podcasts, such as The Sanctuary, a politics and economics of Star Trek pod, Rarely Going, a Star Trek Lower Decks podcast, and Make It So, a Star Trek Picard podcast. We Are Starfleet is produced as part of the We Made This network of podcasts. We Made This brings together popular culture podcasts around film, TV, music, and more that hopefully educate, excite, and don't take themselves too seriously. Check us out at www.wemadethispod.com. Original music composed and performed by Anthony Fuscaldo.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.